Hello, everybody. Welcome to another My Music. How are you doing, everybody? I hope you're well. I did mention in the last edition of My Music this little publication which came through the door earlier today, which is the albums so far of 2024. We may be discussing that with our guest today, Perry Blake, in a minute. But first of all, let's have this little video from Analog Trash where they will sell their wares to you, and you can then go and decide whether you buy any of them from their website. But here we are.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Perry, thanks for joining me. I always like these little publications when people do these little lists, especially when they're sort of more independent kind of record stores and whatever that produce them, because you end up sort of thumbing through and seeing whether you've actually bought anything that's in their top 50. I can safely say maybe one or two this year so far. There's certainly some that I haven't. So which is nice, really, and that's not because they're it's an overly commercial list as well. So it's always quite a nice way of perhaps potentially discovering new music. Any music that stands out for you so far this year?
I haven't really. I mean, a couple of songs here or there, but I'm in the middle of recording a follow up to this current record, so I tend not to listen too much when I'm writing and recording, which is
Yeah, there's a lot of artists that say that.
it's a
kind of-
strange thing. It's I'm so focused on what I'm at that I almost can't listen to the radio or anything. I don't really listen to the radio that much anyway. You know, it's my kids might have it in the car and stuff, and so I get to hear stuff I may not necessarily love. But you know, it's I can't think of anything offhand that I've heard that I'm going.
So away from writing time, when you're not writing and producing, etc., do you then listen to a lot of new music, or do you tend to go back to stuff that you've always gravitated to?
I listen to everything, but I do go back to stuff. I listen to a lot of jazz, John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, stuff like that, because I don't fully understand jazz. Although
I
my
get
my
that.
tunes, yeah, it's I would call it heavy jazz. I just yeah, you know I'm a I don't have a huge knowledge of jazz, but I do like it.
Can be quite inspiring, I feel, listening
Yeah,
to listening to stuff that's A, technically really quite difficult to play,
yeah,
and B, that is possibly a million miles from what you do yourself, and is actually, you know,
that's right.
maybe therefore kind of challenges the brain musically, and there's probably little bits that you get from it, but without it
Absolutely.
being so obvious that you're going to go, oh right, I'm gonna.
Well, a lot of the stuff I'm working on at the moment, which is kind of like a trap lounge sort of direction, which is interesting. It's like an updated version of sort of almost elevator music from the 60s, and that might sound horrific, but with an edge it actually works, and with maybe more interesting lyrics. Um, and that definitely has a jazz leaning. I mean, a lot of the key changes, the chords, they're very jazz. Quite there's an R&B thing as well, but not so sugary. It's got more of an edge, I think.
Wow. Look, we all love a bit of lounge. We all, you know, it's great, isn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah.
going back into the 90s. We used to have a club in London. We had 3 floors, and
Oh,
the downstairs was, you know, it was house, and it was sort of Latin tinge house, and uh, even some sort of some more aggressive dance music sometimes. But the middle section, when you came in, was all kind of lounge, jazz influenced type music. And I think that's got, you know, I think everybody wants an element of that in
I
their
love it.
day.
I've wanted to do a lounge album for years, and it's just coming about now, and it's coming about very organically. I didn't really. It was in my head, but I didn't plan
Mm,
on going there. I just have ended up writing a bunch of tunes that fit within that genre, and the Latin thing is there as well, and some really nice Spanish guitars. Um, but they're in song format, you know, which is not necessarily verse chorus bridge or whatever, but that can work also.
yeah.
It's I try to avoid that if I can, but sometimes a song will just pull you in that direction. What was your club called in London? Because I was in London in the 90s.
Abundant. It was down Charlotte Street, which is just off Tottenham Court Road.
Oh, I
There
wonder
you
if I
go.
was there.
And
Wow.
it had fantastic. I don't know whether it's there now or not. Just over the road from it was a completely authentic Italian coffee stroke sandwich shop, which used to stay open virtually all night, and it
Wow.
was wonderful. You could sort of wander out of the club over the road and order a club sandwich with slightly, you know when you almost get told off by the guy
Yeah.
that owns it. Yeah, I love that.
Not as rude as Bar Italia, though.
No, but I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed
Yeah,
the
I
sort of,
like this
you know,
place.
and there would be a couple of old Italian guys watching TV in Italian in the corner and taking no notice of you, and
I love it.
it just
I love it. I lived close by in Marylebone. It's
right.
not very far away. Back in the 90s.
Oh,
Yeah.
those were the days. There we go. We're here to talk about "Death of a Society Girl" album with a wonderful painting of a lady with what I call Ophelia, really, on the
Yeah.
front. Yeah, with this wonderful uh, bright orange hair set against what are the flowers? Do you know what the flowers are?
I have no idea because the Jason Lazelle from my label Mooching About, he um, he sourced it. It's the third time we've used that artist's work. The previous album plus an acoustic limited release record. Uh, Her paintings have featured. She's a Syrian artist called Helen
Fantastic.
Abbott. She's based in Dubai, I think, but I just love her work, and that's representative of one side of her work, but it's very varied. It's very heavily textured, and that particular image, she's been very gracious to allow us to use her work, and I mean, it sells for a lot of money. You know, you're
Yeah.
talking.
How big is that in real life? Do you know how big it is in real life?
As far as I know, it is larger than maybe A3,
All
but
right,
it could be larger.
could be
I did
bigger than
ask
that.
Jason, but I haven't seen it in the flesh, so to speak.
When you were talking about lounge a minute ago, I mean, one of the bands that we kind of all followed at the time was Saint Etienne, and you know they used quite frequently spoken word on some of their tracks, kind of blending into the vocal and the you know giving this feel like of almost a real narrative. There's a narrative in the music
Yeah.
itself, and then the actual narrative in it. And of course, you've done that with Doctor Who on this album,
Yes.
Paul
Yeah.
McGann. How did that come about?
Uh, it was a freak, really. Jason Lazelle from my label, he was at Comic Con in Liverpool 2 years ago, I think. And a mutual friend of both he and McGann was there, so an illustrator. of comic books, and they ended up having a few beers, and he mentioned me, and McGann had known my earlier stuff, so he said, "Would you do a bit of narration?" He said, "Yeah, if you can wait 3 months," because he was off to shoot a movie somewhere, in I don't know, Algeria or somewhere, and so we did. I held the album back because I had done the voice myself originally, the narration, and
Yeah.
I really didn't want that. I wanted a separation, and Paul McGann would have been a dream. I didn't think I'd have access to him really.
Was that a tense moment there for a minute where you thought, oh, it's going to happen, isn't it?
It was amazing because I deliberately didn't ask him. I didn't say, okay, I want you to do what you did on Withnail I, but he did it anyway. And it's
Right.
just because it's the tonality of it. I wanted it to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
quite detached, not emotional, or at least very little emotion. And that's something I couldn't nail myself with it. So it was amazing. It was his son Joe recorded it in Liverpool, in some outside Liverpool where they live, and he has a studio there. And yeah, we were just very happy. He sent me a few different versions, and I put it together, and I just think it makes the track really work.
Yeah.
You know,
I bet you fell in love with that all over again when that arrived. That was just amazing, isn't it? And the thing is, you realise when things like that happen, why actors are actors.
absolutely, absolutely. When they switch, um, years ago through a mutual friend, I had Elijah Wood stay with me here in Northwest Ireland for 3 or 4 nights, and well, it really cool guy and very relaxed. This is about 20 years ago, and myself and a buddy of mine, we were literally taking the piss out of him all the time, saying like, singing, you're a hard hobbit to break and stuff like that. And he was good humored about it, but basically Elijah is why I'm talking about him now. When he switched, I said, "Do Frodo," and it was staggering, almost
Wow.
schizophrenic, if that doesn't sound ridiculous. He just Frodo was there in front of you, and I was like, "Okay, you're worth the money." I could see why you get paid so well because it was just
Yeah.
extraordinary. And I hadn't really witnessed that up front. I've been involved in film, but just on the musical side. But anyhow, yeah.
No, amazing. You've actually worked with an amazing set of musicians over the years. Any particular favourites? Any memories that
Well, they all
you
had
know?
such unique qualities. I mean, everyone from Steve Johnson did a certain thing on. He toured with me as well for about a year. We did a European tour, um, and there's a great subtlety in his playing and his studio work, particularly. It really worked for that record, and then for the one after that, the California album, I used Neil Conti. Um, it's an extraordinary drummer and a much harder edge,
Yeah.
but I needed that. Plus, he had that brilliant R&B sort of sensibility, and live, he was just uh, a machine. Will be offensive to him because his timing was incredible.
Mm,
On his feel, he knew when to pull back, and really, it was very hard after that when I'm searching for drummers in Ireland, and I have now got a great drummer, but it took me 4 years to find. I've tried out a load of people, and they just didn't have it. If you
oh,
go from
he is a great drummer. And were you a Prefab Sprout fan back in the day?
oh,
Were
big
you?
time, big time,
Yeah.
and I met Neil in a very bizarre way. We were getting off a tour bus after touring. Steve Johnson was there when I met him. We were getting off the tour bus in Crouch End in London, and we were knackered because we'd been touring for 3 months, and everyone's just spaced, going, okay, and where do I live again? And oh, right, trying to adjust. And Neil happened to be walking by, And I was actually a smart ass to him because he said, you guys in a band? I said, no, we're an elite team of plumbers. He started laughing, and we ended up chatting. He said, and I didn't recognize him. And he said, yeah, I was in a band. I went, oh yeah, what was your band called? He said, Prefab Sprout.
Yeah,
I went,
well,
oh, fuck,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but so we became friends, and he's got a place in Crouch End, and my manager lived in Crouch End, and so I uh, went. Neil was living in France, but has a place, keeps a place in London. So within a few months, I was in Montpellier working with him, and he's done 2 records for me.
I mean, if there's a connection between, and I love making connections. If there's a connection between Prefab Sprout and this album, is you have got the swirling strings on there, which
Yeah,
sort of adorned the sort of latter Prefab Sprout albums in particular.
yeah. I mean, I'm very lucky. I have the best string arranger, one of the best in the British Isles, in Graham Murphy. Um, I I put the skeletal tunes together myself in my studio in the Northwest. And when I've got a tune I'm happy with, I'll just hand it over to him. It'll have a guide vocal. Um, I tend to throw in a lot of stuff and then start deleting as I go along, so it's not too cluttered. It's really the production. It's to do with subtlety, and something really has to earn its place there. And Graham then does the string arrangements. I'll give him a rough guide of what I want, but um, and then obviously Chris O'Brien, Graham's partner in the studio in Dublin, the production suite, they mix the tracks, and I don't turn up to the mixes anymore because you become deaf to your own work. So what I'll do is I'll turn up on the last day. I'll send him a guide mix, which will sound awful, but will have the right levels,
Yeah,
and you can take that as a blueprint, as a grid, if you like, or a harness, and it's a great way of working because uh, with the first album, I was at the mix every day in London, um, in West London, and it just became. I didn't know if it was any good at the end. You hear it. I was like, I can't tell if this mix is amazing or shit. So I found a very good groove, a way of working with Graham.
do you find it with the way that it's produced? Do you find it quite easy to sing over?
Well, I sing over the rough cuts, and then Graham will add something, and then I might go back into my studio and do some other voices, backing vocals, ghostly little sounds here or there. I'll bring somebody in. Um, Graham plays a lot of instruments. He also programs drums, so I'll have rough like outline of program drums, and then he'll embellish everything, and we're on the same page, so it's very easy. We've never
Mm.
had a row. We've worked together for 31 years. We lived together in London for a year, and we've just never had an argument even, which is
Wow.
highly unusual.
Yeah. Sounds like you should get married. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah. You might have to have a little story.
so is there a favorite track on the album?
Um, I do like Society Girl, Death of a Society Girl. I'm very fond of it. It came together in a very
It's a great
it
title
almost
for a start, isn't
it,
it?
it just wrote itself, if that makes
Mm.
any sense. Um, it doesn't really have there's no middle eight as such. Um, I just like the way it evolved, and I wouldn't stick a middle eight in or any other section. It felt very. Once it was mixed, it's one I go back to, and I don't really listen to my own stuff. I had to just listen for approval recently for mastering, but um, I like Rules of Love as well. There's something about it that I like. It's almost like a European acoustic feel from it. But I like the direction. I can see it leading towards what I'm at now, the lounge thing. Um, so yeah,
I desperately want to hear your lounge thing now as well.
yeah,
This-
it's a concept album that you can actually listen to, i.e., it's already got a title. I could picture the artwork, um,
I
and I
love
think
that.
it'll be fun to play. I mean, it's dark lounge, but not not in a. It's got a bit of R&B there, and the jazz tunings are the jazz
Yeah,
chords are really great to sing with. So it's melodic, How
yeah.
commercial it is, no idea. I don't really, at my age, I don't really give that huge consideration. I'm not a pop star.
I'm
So
going to give you a little tip while you're on. If you haven't discovered, and I don't mind plugging them because I think they're brilliant. If you haven't discovered Jazz Room Records yet on Bandcamp, check out Jazz Room Records.
I
Hi
will.
guys.
I will.
But they're doing a fantastic job of reissuing a lot of great jazz albums from the 70s.
Well, that's uh,
Um,
that's that's exactly what my label do as well. You know that.
yeah.
Mooching about. In fact, mooching about. There
So
are only
you
three.
should talk. You should go out for a drink. You should collab.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only of all of the artists on Mooching About, only three of us are alive. Everything's a reissue from
I
long
love,
dead
I love it. It's the way to
music.
go. It's the way to go.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll sell some more records if I pop my clogs.
Well, you know, if you think about it, it was the way that vinyl sales were sustained for a long period of time, wasn't it? Which was actually
Yeah.
producing or reproducing versions of albums that were already there, right?
Well, up until about 8 or 10 years ago, I think there were only two pressing plants left. I could be corrected there, but in Europe, there was one in
Correct.
Austria specialized in mostly classical music, and there
One
was
in the Czech
one
Republic.
somewhere in
Yeah,
the Czech
one in the
Republic.
Czech
That's right.
Republic. Hmm.
And they did a lot of the jazz stuff. And it's a friend of mine who he owns a factory producing precision plastics. He said to me 10 years ago, 12 years ago, he said, I'm thinking of opening a vinyl plant. And I was like, no, you're crazy, man. And I was completely wrong. I've said it, I've apologized to him. I was like, dude, you would be on a winner there. But they had to bring mostly old guys out of retirement to teach people how to actually cut vinyl to
Yeah.
in the process because it was a skill that was lost. I mean, literally, they were bringing guys in their 80s,
Although
paying.
actually, what's happening now is you're getting them opening, and one of the things that's great about it, especially a lot of the ones that are opening in the UK, are very environmentally friendly as well. I mean, there's one that's opened not so long ago in Scotland. Is it Sea Bass, something like that? Is the label, and their whole process is environmentally friendly. There's a great video of Fish ex Marillion doing the rounds on the internet, going around this factory, and he said he's had so many problems around trying to source decent vinyl from around the world, and then literally this place pops up 10 minutes down the road from him. He
It's
can't believe
fantastic.
it. It is.
So it honestly, I'm so sorry I didn't convince this dude otherwise, to at least agree with him. Going, that is a really good idea, but things just changed very quickly. I mean, most of my sales, we release CDs because some people still like them in Europe, um, but the vinyl reissues have sold really pretty well.
I think people want it. I think people want it. I've got to ask a bit of a daft question, but it's just one that got to be thrown in there. You've got a track on here, "Let's Fall in Love." As soon as you mention "Let's Fall in Love" to people, do they immediately sort of go, "Let's fall in love"? Do they immediately go to like different Perry cat. Yeah,
Well, the tune, it's got a nice. I like the hard edge. For me. If I listen back, if I'm being self-critical, it sounds like I desperately wanted to write a Bond theme, and nobody asked me, so I just did it anyway.
well,
Because the
it's the way to go,
changes
isn't it?
are quite Bond, very Moonraker. But I've loved the Bond movies since I was a kid. Um, yeah, even the Roger Moore ones, like I was
Oh,
always a
come on!
big
I
fan.
grew up on Roger Moore, so it's
Yeah, well, I was, yeah, me too. Yeah, Connery. I only saw them on as reruns. I was too young for the
yeah.
Connery stuff. But yeah, I mean, I just always love the music, and I like melancholic music that has a touch of something that, to my ears, seemed exotic. I was never
Yep.
interested in that singer-songwriter in the corner. It works for Billy Bragg, that's great. And I don't make overly political music because I don't want to shove an opinion down anyone's throat. Um, I have my politics, but I don't. I think
You
politics have
don't feel you
emotion.
need to bring them into music in that way. It's your
No,
music
it's just
isn't a
not for
voice
me.
for it isn't a vehicle for your politics.
It's not. No, and there are a lot of people out there who are great protest singers, songwriters. And I'm just not one of them. I Politics um, have emotion. Emotion has no politics, and that's the way I
Yeah.
see it. I try to keep a clean palette in that sense, and I like the idea that anybody can listen to it. I might not agree with their politics, but it's none of my business. The transaction is that I should produce the best body of work I can. I'm lucky enough to make a living from it. And I'll never be buying Learjets, but I never wanted one anyway. So I have my niche, you know, and I'm just grateful that
I
people
wouldn't
like
worry,
my
Perry.
music.
I've heard the upkeep on Learjet is
I'm
dreadful.
sure, yeah.
It's
Yes, GDP of a small African.
yeah. It's like it used to.
Very small
It used
African.
to be like when people took me around. There was a time when I was out on the road and doing a lot of furniture. I was selling a lot of furniture, and one of the things in the trade was people owned boats, and they would take you to their boat moored somewhere, and then take you out for a bit of a fancy do on the sea somewhere. But it was when they started talking about the cost of actually mooring that boat
Oh, it's incredible.
all year. Yeah, exactly. It was like the cost isn't in buying the boat. The cost is in everything else. The fuel, the mooring it, the paying for everything around it. It's
Oh,
just like,
absolutely. Like,
you know, you don't want a
it,
Learjet. That would be really,
it's
especially in
just, yeah.
London. I mean, think of the parking fee for a Learjet in London.
Quite
Costs you
actually,
a fortune to park a bike in London. My
London is
word.
hilarious. It's about 50 quid an hour now for a car after you pay the
Exactly.
congestion charge. Yeah,
Exactly. Listen, this is I could talk all day, but this is a beautiful album. Um,
thank you.
it's got a real charm to it, and I love the way that sometimes the very simple drums sort of play off, a lot happening over the top of them in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, sweeping strings and other sounds, and then your lovely tone just cuts through the middle of it. It's a very very beautiful album. Thank you for
Thank you.
making it, Perry.
It's interesting regarding the drums. My stepson Daniel, he's 23. When I was making the record, he came into the studio and he said, you're making a trap album," and I was like, "What's that then?" I kind of knew what it was, but not. I didn't realize
Yeah,
what I
but
was
you're
actually.
at an age like I am that you don't admit to knowing, right? Because it's
Yeah,
it's really uncool.
yeah. It's definitely a bit of reverse psychology going on there. But it's
Yeah.
I know that I knew that trap was a cousin of R&B and a cousin of trip hop, and they're all sort of lumped in. But when I listened, then I actually made it my business. I went, wow, the drums, almost all of them are trap. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting. Somehow, somewhere, I latched onto that sort of
I
particular.
think you should get a
Uh,
T-shirt made. I made a
yes,
trap album.
and I've lived to tell the tale.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would really embarrass him, wouldn't it? You could,
I
yeah,
would
just get
absolutely.
just get the
I've
get the
endless
gold chain and
possibilities.
everything. Just go for the whole bling thing as well. Was it the
Yeah,
pang and whatever? Yeah, just wear it
yeah.
in the street. What? How's this available? Obviously, it's available on Bandcamp, etc.
Yeah,
To
Bandcamp,
buy.
and also the CDs are mail order plus whatever record stores there are there. We're putting it out on vinyl later in the year for the second kind of push, um, probably in October, I think. But it's available through Moochin About and obviously Bandcamp, etc., etc. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, go and fill your boots, folks. Is what I was going to say. Do go and listen to the album. I'm sure you will really enjoy it. It's a fantastic album. Death of a Society Girl. Ah, what a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today, Perry. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation too. If you want to find out more, do follow Perry on the social medias, etc. as well. And if you've enjoyed this, please do follow, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you haven't enjoyed it, that's 31 minutes and 48
I've
seconds
enjoyed
of
it
your
very
life
much. Graham.
gone. Sorry, you can't get it back. Just go and
No,
buy an
it was
album
great.
instead.
It was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Yeah. Ciao.